The Rowan Initiative, the calling of the unicorn employee.
Throughout history, certain stories transcend mere words, becoming timeless guides that help us navigate our own moments of doubt and fear. Elbert Hubbard's A Message to Garcia, written over a century ago, is one such story, a tribute to taking initiative, acting without hesitation or excuses, and the strength of human will. But much has changed since then, including the nature of the challenges we face. In today's world, flooded with distractions where the line between purpose and productivity has blurred, we need a new story, one that speaks to our relentless search for authentic value in a modern age. This is the story of Daniel Carter, a man torn between a comfortable life and the allure of greatness, a story of grit, sacrifice, and an unwavering quest to rise above the ordinary.
The quiet yearning of an unremarkable man.
Daniel Carter was the kind of person whose presence rarely drew attention. He moved through life like a shadow that resisted definition by the light. At 32, he was a project manager at a massive tech company, one of thousands governed by keycards and KPIs, where human potential often got lost in the daily churn of data and deliverables. His coworkers saw him as diligent but forgettable, a man who did his job well but never sought the spotlight. Yet there was something different about Daniel, something only a few noticed. A worn, dog-eared book he carried everywhere. The book was A Message to Garcia, filled with his scribbles in the margins, its pages yellowed and creased from years of reflection. To Daniel, it was not just a motivational musing, it was a sacred codex. Rowan, the soldier who carried a message through the Cuban jungle without instructions or a map, was more than a hero to him. Rowan was an unanswered question. What would it take to be that resolute? Yet, Daniel was no fearless warrior. He was a man stuck between two worlds, the one where he played it safe, blending into the crowd, and the one where he felt a deep, almost spiritual calling to do something extraordinary. He lived in the tension between comfort and courage, his mind a battlefield where ambition clashed with doubt. His friends saw potential, but they also saw hesitation.
We know you've got it in you.
They'd say over beers.
Why don't you just take a chance?
Daniel would shrug, smile, and keep his secret close. The truth was, he feared the consequences of stepping into the arena, of failing not just in front of others, but in front of himself. And yet, beneath that fear lay a quiet yearning, a whisper that refused to be silenced.
The catalyst, a crisis beyond calculation.
The moment that would redefine Daniel's life didn't come like a bolt of lightning, but as a slow, creeping fog. His company, a tech giant known for its global reach and innovation, was facing a crisis of its own making. Their largest client in Southeast Asia, a conglomerate that made up a third of their revenue, was about to sever ties. Years of unmet promises, cultural missteps, and a disastrous software rollout had turned what was once a thriving relationship into a tense standoff. Daniel's CEO, a man known for his pragmatic toughness, called his top executives into a sterile, glass-walled boardroom. His face, marked by years of tough decisions, now looked like a general who had seen too many battles go wrong.
We need someone to go out there and fix this,
he said, his voice sharp and clear.
If we lose them, we lose a third of our business. Who's going to step up?
The silence that followed was suffocating. The room, thick with the tension of risk and reward, seemed to weigh down the very souls of those present. Everyone knew what was being asked. Not just time and effort, but one's entire professional reputation. No one moved. No one even dared to breathe. For Daniel, the moment was a knife's edge, a point of no return. Fear rose in his throat, the familiar grip of doubt that had held him back so many times before. He thought of Rowan, the man who didn't ask for clarity, who didn't wait for instructions, who simply went. Daniel felt something shift inside him, a crack in the wall of his own restraint. And so, with a breath that felt like his first real breath, he stood up.
I'll go,
he said, his voice breaking the silence. All eyes turned to him, filled with a mix of shock and skepticism. The CEO stared at him with a hard gaze.
What makes you think you'll succeed?
Daniel's heart pounded in his chest.
Because I won't just go to fix it, I'll go to understand. I won't come back until it's right.
Into the wilderness, the uncharted path of purpose.
Daniel left that meeting not with a plan, but with conviction. He didn't ask for a team or a budget. He didn't prepare a deck of slides or request a list of action items. He booked a one-way ticket to Singapore, packed his satchel with his worn copy of A Message to Garcia, and left with nothing but a determination that burned like fire in his veins. He knew this journey was not about fixing a problem. It was about forging a healthy new bond. When he arrived, it wasn't to open arms, but to high walls of skepticism. The client's offices, pristine and imposing, were filled with people who were tired of promises and corporate jargon. For weeks, Daniel navigated two worlds, The gleaming boardrooms where deals were made and the dim, cluttered server rooms where the real work happened. He met with anyone who would talk to him, engineers, secretaries, junior managers. He listened, not to reply, but to truly understand. Each night, alone in his hotel room, Daniel faced the shadows of his own fear. The weight of his choice pressed down on him like an anvil on his chest. Was he a fool for thinking he could make a difference? Was he setting himself up for a public failure that would ruin his career? On nights when the temptation to return home nearly broke him, he would open his book and read the lines that had become his credo.
It is not book learning young men need, nor instruction about this and that, but a stiffening of the vertebrae which will cause them to be loyal to a trust.
But even these words, which had sustained him for so long, began to feel thin in the face of relentless reality. There were moments when he wondered if he was not just carrying a message to Garcia, but carrying a burden too heavy for any one person to bear.
The abyss, confronting the shadows within.
One night, after a grueling day of negotiations and disappointments, Daniel found himself in the dimly lit lobby of the client's office building, sitting beside an elderly janitor who was mopping the floor. The man, his face lined with years of quiet labor, looked at Daniel with a knowing glance.
You look like a man carrying the weight of the world.
The janitor said, his voice soft but firm. Daniel, exhausted and feeling more alone than ever, nodded.
I came here to fix something, to prove something, but now I'm not even sure what I'm doing.
The janitor paused, then replied.
Maybe you're not here to save a contract. Maybe you're here to find yourself. Do you believe you have what it takes?
The words hit Daniel like a wave crashing against the rocks. In that moment, he realized that this journey wasn't just about the client or the company. It was about him, about facing his deepest fears, about proving to himself that he could live up to the mythology he had built around Rowan, and perhaps in some way surpass it. With this new understanding, Daniel pushed forward with a renewed sense of purpose. He met with the client's CEO, an inscrutable closed book, who had been given too many half-hearted gestures to be easily swayed. Daniel spoke not with rehearsed pitches, but with raw vulnerability. He didn't promise a perfect solution. He promised a relentless pursuit to make it right. In that moment, the CEO didn't hear a baseless claim. He saw a man willing to stake his very soul on his word. After a long silence, the CEO extended his hand.
Let's rebuild this.
He said,
Not as companies, but as people.
The transformation, beyond the message into the myth.
Daniel returned to his company not as a conquering hero, but as something far more potent, a catalyst. His story spread through the organization like wildfire, but not because he had saved a client. It was because he had shown what it truly meant to step into the unknown with nothing but conviction and character. Daniel's CEO, who had long become numb to the platitudes of corporate culture, stood before his employees with a newfound fire.
We don't need more managers.
He said,
We need more people like Daniel. People who don't wait for directions but create their own. People who don't avoid the terrifying unknown. Instead, run toward it.
The Rowan Initiative was born, not as a policy, but as a movement. It became a call to every employee to be the one who steps up, who doesn't ask for clarity but creates it, who doesn't seek comfort but finds meaning and value in the struggle.
A new myth for a new age, the calling of the unicorn employee.
Daniel Carter's story is more than a tale of corporate heroism. It is a new parable for our times, a testament to what it means to be a unicorn employee. They are defined not by their titles or talents, but by their willingness to step into the void, to embrace ambiguity, and to act when others hesitate. They stand for action over inaction, presence over pretense, purpose over power. Conversely, they stand against the culture of waiting for permission, for guarantees, for someone else to go first. They reject the complacency of the status quo, the paralysis of analysis, and the safety of the known path. They understand that the most profound acts of leadership are those forged in the crucible of uncertainty, where the only compass is one's own integrity.
The moral of the story, carrying the message beyond the page.
The story of Daniel Carter is a clarion call to each of us, a call to find our own message to Garcia, to step beyond the safe confines of the ordinary, and to risk everything to be extraordinary. It is a reminder that in a world full of noise and distraction, where real leadership is rare and true purpose is elusive, there remains a timeless truth. The power to change the world lies not in systems or structures, but in the courage of the individual who dares to act upon them. As Daniel looks at his tattered copy of A Message to Garcia, he knows that his journey is far from over. Every day, in every decision, he must choose again to carry the message, to be the difference, to defy the ordinary. And so must we all. For the story is not about reading the message, it is about living it through every choice, every challenge, and every breath we take. So maybe this story can serve as your message to Garcia. Written by Wizard Ryan Shute. Thank you for listening. Copyright 2024. All rights reserved.